But all right, let's go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone to today's webinar, How to Supercharge Your B2B Ads in 2025. My name is Amanda Brief. I am the Event Marketing Manager here at Right Side Up, and I'm going to be your moderator for today. And if you're not familiar with Right Side Up, we are a collective of marketing specialists who have helped more than 1,000 companies hit their growth goals. We have expertise across all different marketing functions, from performance to lifecycle to SEO, just to name a few. And we will cover more about Right Side Up and Right Percent in a little bit. Now, I am thrilled to be joined by Luke and Kevin from the Right Percent team here at Right Side Up. If you're not familiar with Right Percent, it is a Right Side Up venture that focuses on scaling fast-growing B2B companies in every vertical. So we're really excited to have you guys on board. And Luke, I know you are a B2B marketing veteran who's scaled millions for ad spend across, for clients like Bloomberg, Segment, and Reddit, just to name a few. So you'll hear both from Kevin and Luke in just a moment. And with that, we always like to throw out that obligatory housekeeping slide. So just wanting to remind everyone, all participants except the panelists are muted. However, if you have any questions, you can put them in the Q&A box. And we love to make this webinar interactive. So if you have any comments or any ideas or questions or things like that, feel free to use the chat box to converse with us. Our speakers will be open to answering anything that comes through, whether it's verbally or typing in the chat box as well. And then lastly, if you are looking for a recording to watch the webinar afterwards or share it with colleagues, we'll be sending out a recording tomorrow afternoon. So look out for that in your inbox. All right, with that, I'm going to throw out a quick poll question. Okay, so do you expect to increase your spend on B2B ads? Yes, no, or you're not sure? So I'll give you just a moment to fill that out. Looks like we're getting kind of a mix right now. The majority of people are saying that, yes, they are going to increase their B2B spend. Kevin or Luke, are you, from talking to clients right now, what's kind of the temperature? Do you expect people to increase more? Or are they, pausing? Are they being more conservative?
The temperature's going up for sure. I would say testing ambitions, from what I've seen from clients, reflect what we're seeing in the poll here. Seems like 70% yes, 6% no, 25% not sure. That sounds about right. There's definitely bullishness in the market for B2B SaaS that we haven't seen in like 2 years.
Yeah,
definitely. There's a lot of appetite right now. It feels like everything is like after, it feels like the last 2 years, things have been kind of trending a little bit down more in terms of ad spend. Definitely a lot of bullishness going into second half of this year and then going into next year as well.
cool. All right, let's close that poll and we'll quickly share the results. So it looks like 72% of you said yes, 6% of you said no, and then 22% of you are not sure. You have a couple months to really think that through, but thank you everyone for filling out that poll question. All right, with that, I'm going to hand it off to Kevin to kind of walk through the agenda and kick off today's webinar. Enjoy, everyone.
Awesome. So glad to be here. So, this webinar is about how to turbocharge in 2025. So we are going to focus a little more on what's changed in B2B advertising, as opposed to just like the fundamentals. That said, we'll touch on both, probably like 70% new stuff, 30% fundamentals, as we go through this presentation. We're going to start by going over marketing channels, what's worked and what's changed in the winning channels. Luke will go over emerging trends in B2B advertising. I'll go through optimizing ad creative and offers, as well as how to test and learn in 2025. And then we'll go into Q&A. All right, channels. So you can just go to the next slide. This is my handy dandy marketing channel chart. Some of you who have seen my presentations have seen versions of this before. The x-axis is customer specificity. So anybody can buy a t-shirt. Few people can buy a t-shirt printing machine, which is why B2B is all on the right-hand side of this chart. The y-axis is your customer actively looking for a product like yours? It's a measure of intent. So if you're high intent, the channels on the top work. As you can see, there's a ton of channels on that right-hand side that can work for B2B. There's outbound calling, there's SEO, there's trade shows. Within digital, however, the big three are still LinkedIn, Meta, and Google. And I'll go to the next slide to show you how those channels differ. So this chart, the blue on the triangle represents the number of decision makers available to target. So if you can target 5 million people, so like every small business in America, that would be, kind of like the middle of this chart or above. 40 million would be like every freelancer in America, all the way down to that little triangle at the bottom, which is just targeting like this chief information officers of the Fortune 5,000. And as you can see, Google works across the spectrum. It can work for small or big audiences. Smaller audiences for attention-based marketing tend to work better on LinkedIn. So when we're going after enterprise or mid-market, LinkedIn is our first stop for paid social. If we're going after, a small business audience or some kind of bottoms-up audience that also has a lot of decision makers, we'd go with Facebook, and then sometimes even TikTok if the audience is broad enough. But these are still the big three. LinkedIn, Facebook, and AdWords should be where the majority of your digital ad budget for B2B in 25. So a couple big upgrades. Luke will go into more details here. LinkedIn is massively improving in all respects, in the ability to measure, in the ability to target, in the ability to have different ad units to focus on. LinkedIn has done some major work improving themselves as an ad platform, and the roadmap looks good as well. Meta, native lead functionality, where you collect the lead directly on the platform, has seen major upgrades. Luke will get more into that. Google, as you guys probably know, if you're an advertiser, is getting more and more algorithm driven. Things like, PMAX, where they want you to optimize on an event and train the platform, are only going to get more important. And TikTok, if it survives regulation, now has a native lead ad functionality, which is designed pretty well for B2B. With that, I will pass it off to Luke.
Hey guys, excited to be chatting with you. Some of the changes that we have been seeing over 2024 that are going to only continue into 2025. Users are really skeptical of ads and becoming more and more skeptical of ads. As you think about like budgets expanding and the inundation that we have with ads all the time, it kind of makes sense. Um, Things that we're doing to combat that on our side and like what we are recommending is specificity is really important. If you're promoting a guide or a white paper, help the user understand the value of it from the jump. If you're providing a demo, even if someone has been to your website 100 times and they're the highest intent person, most people still don't want to hop on the phone just because they saw an ad. What's the value they're going to get from a demo compared to getting more information from your website or whatever the case is? Really provide that upfront within an ad unit or as soon as possible so that people like understand, oh, that's why I should be hopping on a call with these guys as opposed to just continuing to browse. Um, Specific use cases, offers, and screenshots are really important. If you have a screenshot that showcases your platform driving more revenue or how you're able to make a user's job easier, because at the end of the day, all of us are really just out to make our own jobs easier, right? It can do worlds for your performance. Similarly, if you're targeting a specific industry or a niche, use data and playbook in your ads that are relevant to that group. That's really important on LinkedIn. I know Kevin was just kind of talking about how we typically are using LinkedIn when we're trying to get into like more niche advertising with enterprise and mid-market. If you're able to provide content and information that is really relevant to whoever it is that you're advertising to, it can really improve your LinkedIn performance a ton. Don't make users leave the ad platform if possible. Native lead ads are becoming more and more powerful across every single channel, LinkedIn and Meta in particular. And Meta's been doing a lot of great things on their end to improve their lead ad functionality. Figure out what you can do with pre-qualifying questions to drive qualified leads that engage in that native format rather than sending out to the website. Lastly, every platform's relying more and more on AI and machine learning. It's harder than ever now to test your way out of bad performance. If the signal you're sending isn't good, you're likely to be stuck in a rut. So what can you do to make sure that the conversion signal you're sending is solid and going to be indicative of future performance? Most effective performance on the LinkedIn side really comes from commingling sponsored content and conversation ads. And so LinkedIn like has done a lot to expand their placements over the years, but really we're seeing our best performance come from sponsored content plus conversation ads in tandem. LinkedIn reps have shown data time and time again that if you run both of those formats, your performance on the platform as a whole tends to improve. Some of the other placements that are worth testing, thought leadership, especially effective if you have a recognizable name in the space that you're able to utilize. Like if I'm running finance ads and I have someone that's really notable in the finance space to promote, that can be really effective. And then also connected TV. Compared to other platforms, LinkedIn has so much first party data on who is actually working at different companies, working within different industries, so on and so forth. The connected TV can be a really strong for awareness plays there. One other that I'll add in here that isn't noted is document ads. LinkedIn document ads do a really good job of providing users with a teaser of the content that you're trying to get them to download or take a look at. So utilizing that ad format can be really powerful for getting people just a teaser of engagement and then wanting to see the full piece of content that you're promoting afterwards. Uh, Native lead ads on Meta are much more effective than they've been in prior years. And in particular, that's because Meta has done a lot to improve lead quality. And, if you're like me, like you've tested native lead ads before, maybe, over past years, and you've had some horror story of, oh, I got all of these like really crappy leads that came in. That can still be the case at times, but they've done a lot to improve the consistency of the leads that you're getting. The two biggest ways that you're able to improve the quality of the ads of the native lead ads on Meta is by utilizing conditional logic, which is something that they added. So just a simple thing like asking someone, if I'm running a ad trying to figure out like, oh, does this person have the budget to even utilize whatever ad platform I'm promoting, right? Just asking like, hey, like, what is your expected ad budget or monthly ad budget in 2025 can really like weed out folks that are just kind of kicking the tires on different things, as opposed to folks that have a more robust budget and are sending out to the sales team. So that's a really powerful way to improve the quality of the leads that you're getting there. Meta's also added a CAPI integration for lead ads so that you're able to optimize to a CAPI signal based on like down funnel data from the folks that have filled out a lead ad. So if I, send or get someone to fill out a lead ad and then a week later or so um, they move down funnel, they book a call with us, they become an opportunity. You're able to now send that data back into Meta and optimize to that as opposed to just the lead gen signal. But between those two things, you're really able to improve the quality of the leads that you're getting through Meta, which has always been like the name of the game in terms of driving better performance there. On the Google ad side, and I know that everyone has heard this before, but the Google ad algorithm is one, improving, but then two, also where Google is moving the platform more and more. So I said this earlier, but it's becoming harder and harder to test your way out of down performance within Google or Meta or wherever by running tests that are specified to like a keyword or something like that. Uh, it's really important to make sure that your conversion signal is strong on Google, and then from there, uh, that also opens up new possibilities in terms of targeting for you. So you're basically able to get into things like broad match keywords. You're able to get into things like performance max. Those can work significantly better if you're passing over a reliable conversion signal that is down funnel enough to be indicative of quality. Um, you really have to carefully audit that. Like we have run into situations where we'll be passing back a conversion signal that is, maybe a little too high in the funnel, and then from there we end up driving leads that might not be as high of quality. But if you're able to make sure that you're passing back passing back data of really qualified users, then at that point, like you'll see like huge lifts within broad match, within performance max, and so on and so forth. Other ad platforms, a couple of other ad platforms that are up and coming in the B2B space that we're seeing more and more investment in. One is Reddit ads. They have a new lead gen functionality that is in beta right now, so we'll see how that goes as it comes out of beta. Reddit in particular can work really well if you have a specific niche that's active on Reddit. So, if you're in finance or whatever, and you're able to target whatever finance specific subreddits, that can work pretty well. It's also important to have Reddit specific offerings. So, Reddit tends to flame folks that are coming in and just coming with a very money hungry offering. If you're able to come in and give something away. One example that I had was a past client that had a specific offering that was like just for startups. So we would target it to just startup and entrepreneurship focused subreddits. And then from there, we would like basically give away the product for a very heavily discounted rate to startups that were under a certain amount of revenue. That kind of offering works really well on Reddit, just because it feels like you're giving something back to that community as opposed to just being more money hungry. Um, TikTok also has lead gen functionality available. The big thing to highlight there is it's really important to match the format of TikTok videos. That is something that a lot of folks like don't necessarily have quite down. You can't just like copy and paste whatever ads are working well on Instagram or Facebook into TikTok. You really do need to make it feel like it's a native part of the platform in order to get it to work. And with that, I will pass to the poll, Amanda.
Yeah, sure. All right, let me launch it real quickly. All right, what do you consider the most important element of effective advertising creative? We have headline, image, supporting copy, offer, or the call to action. We'll give a few seconds. It looks like kind of a tie between image and headline, which makes sense. Doesn't look like anyone agrees about supporting copy. Okay, let's close it out and we'll share it. Okay, looks like image got the most at 44%, followed by headline, then offer and call to action. Is any of that surprising to you guys, Kevin or Luke?
That's about what I would expect people to answer. And there's no right answer to this question, right? Like they all are important. I think 0% on supporting copy sounds about right. I would say the only thing underrepresented here is offer, which is actually really important. But we'll get into all of this in the next section.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And it back to you guys.
All right. Welcome back to me. You guys don't have to listen to Luke anymore. So optimizing B2B ad creative and offers. There's three elements of effective ad creative on paid social. There's the visual headline. This is the text on the ad image or video. There's the actual imagery or the video. So like what's the visual element of your ad? And then there's the offer. So the offer is anything the person gets from clicking your ad. We'll start with the visual headline. So this is an example, this big text on the ad image. We've tested all of these variables over the past 5.5 years, over 10,000 B2B ads. And we find that 75% or more of the ad performance comes down to that visual headline. So we find that paid social follows a power law, right? A power law means that only 10% of the ads you test will get major spend and performance on the platforms. So you test 20 and then 2 or 3 will really succeed. This is true on Facebook. This is true on LinkedIn. And it's getting truer even on Google as well. What this means is the optimal like testing methodology, knowing that visual headlines are so important and so few of your ads will get the most results, is to test a large array of visual headlines, positioning your product in different ways. That's our approach, and we see it gets pretty good results on paid social. Successful ads call out their target audience in B2B and are text heavy. So if you look at some of these examples on the right, and I'll be showing some zoomed in examples also, there's a couple things that are in common with them. One is that they're quite text heavy, right? And all of this text on the image all goes under the term visual headline, like even though there's quite a bit of it. Text heaviness works well because in B2B, most products are abstract. It is, a dashboard or an API or a service behind the scenes. It's not like B2C where if you're selling a t-shirt or a toaster, the product shows you exactly how it works, which is why user-generated content, like on TikTok and so on, works so well in B2C. In B2B, the text is key to sort of translating the abstraction of the product to how it actually helps your customer. And calling out the target audience is important. Like you can see that middle ad for Motive, we're calling out fleet managers. For the ad on the right, we're calling out salon and spa owners, because that helps the ad algorithms. Well, one, it helps the ad algorithms like figure out based on who's clicking initially, like who they should serve more to. But second, if you are one of those decision makers and you're on Facebook arguing about cat pictures or LinkedIn arguing about non-cat pictures, you'll be stopped and be like, oh, this ad's for me. I better stop here. So ad imagery is less important than the headline, but there's a lot of different ways to do it, right? Generally, the headline should be very straightforward, but the picture behind it can be creative and kooky or on brand or very boring. There's a lot of varieties that can work and are worth testing. That said, some rules of images, specific and easy to understand screenshots of your product and guide are often successful. Specific and easy to understand are two keywords there. Industry related visuals, again, what you're looking for is ad someone is scrolling and not really paying attention. Will they stop and be like, oh, this ad's for me? And then metaphorical images can sometimes drive the point home on what's otherwise very normal copy. So some examples, here are two Reddit ads. Generally, there's a lot of things I like about these ads. One is the specificity. This right ad calls out marketing leaders. It talks about the kind of person they can reach on Reddit. The left ad has a very compelling offer, the $500 in ad credit for spending $500. And also showing off all the different subreddits here. So we've mentioned this word a lot, but specificity is so powerful in ads because there's not that much trust in advertising. If you're vague and abstract, it won't grab people's attention and they won't think it's worth clicking through. But the more hints you give them, oh, this is something of value, this is something that matters to your business, the better you'll do. These are two examples I also like. So the left is a classic metaphorical image. This is an old one for my database. It worked really well for a long time. The basic idea is you can have a very boring headline, employee onboarding guide, and find something that represents that, right? So hiking can represent that. We had another really cute image promoting this ebook where it was like baby ducks following a mother duck. That kind of creativity can reduce your ad fatigue over time. But don't forget that the important part is really that visual headline. And once you find a winning visual headline, you can try out different images to support it. On the right, you'll see, this bright wheel ad. Again, very text heavy. Normal designers don't like this much text, but it does work really well in B2B because it goes through exactly what bright wheel offers. It makes it compelling enough that someone's like, oh, this is worth a click. This isn't just BS. Here's some more examples. I like this one on the right. It's so basic, right? It's just literally big text with a logo. Back in the day, this was one of the most effective ads on DoorDash for Work. And on this left one, again, for a testimonial, you can see basically by showing exactly what that business owner said and connecting it to the client needs, it ended up being an effective advertisement. So offers. Offers, like I mentioned earlier, are anything that comes from clicking the ad. So get a demo is like the default offer. Sign up for a product is a default offer. Another type of offer is content. So ebooks, templates, tools, guides, webinars, anything educational. And then incentive is things like product credits, event invites to conferences, things like gift cards for talking to someone with a demo, and even things like ear pods or swag from your company. And I see a question: have you tested ebooks versus weekly live webinars? Both are good. Generally, a rule of more is better in content because it helps reduce ad and audience fatigue. I actually have a graph. It's not in this chart that shows, ad accounts with a variety of gated content or ungated content see much lower, increases in cost per click over time, which normally come from ad fatigue. Because instead of seeing one offer that people get fatigued on, you can keep offering different offers: this ebook, this webinar, that webinar, and keep an account fresher. Um, Offers are so important. It's hard to overemphasize. Almost no B2B ad account gets past 100,000 a month in spend with effective ROI without either a strong content or a strong incentive strategy. Get a demo is generally not enough to succeed on paid social unless you have crazy product market fit. There's a couple rules for making sure content works. So content does work very well. There's different rules. Generally, you want to default to gated content unless you have a very precise audience. The keys, the golden rules to making content work: one, laser target it toward your target decision maker. So if, sales executives at companies with 500 to 1,000 employees are the ones who will buy your product, you should make your content really, really, really focused towards them and not care about anybody else. It's a classic mistake to make content that applies to too many people. And then there's too many unqualified leads that your sales team can't close, because content is fundamentally about creating another piece of that sales nurture cycle, right? The content has to be highly related to your company's unique selling proposition. And unique selling proposition, if you're Bill.com, you don't want to make a piece of content about how to survive at work from home, right? Because how do you upsell that? There was just actually a great question from the audience: does content have to be bottom of funnel to be successful? And the answer is no. But all content has to be appealing to the type of people who make those bottom of funnel decisions. So it doesn't have to be like the salesperson can immediately pick up the phone and close you, but it has to be something that gets the client closer to the close in a noticeable and measurable way. There's a bunch of reasons for that, but one of the biggest ones is we're promoting this content in ads, right? And ads work on a feedback loop where if the right type of person comes in, you can adjust your campaigns to get more of them, both manually and algorithmically through the platform. And if you're getting content that's attracting all kinds of people and not your target market, you're going to basically keep training that campaign to get you lower quality people as opposed to higher. It's a very negative feedback loop. You want a positive feedback loop where you attract quality, send quality signals back, and get higher quality. Which brings me to my third golden rule on content, which is it has to be actionable and easy to imagine how to use. So someone seeing that ad for content, this is actually, when we make content for clients, which we do sometimes, we like to work backwards from what we imagine the ad to look like. Because people see, if the content offer is not specific enough, it's a vague white paper about the industry, again, people don't have trust that this is going to be worth their time. They won't fill it out. If it's an obvious, checklist of, checklist of things HR teams can do to get the most out of their stuff, or like a template for how do you do budget tracking hourly, whatever, that kind of thing. All of that is the user, as they're seeing the scroll, can be like, oh, wow, I could actually see how to use that. That's not BS. And that's what makes content really effective. Incentives. So incentives, or offering someone, the client, something to meet with your sales team or do something else you want them to do, is a surprisingly effective strategy. So it can feel tacky, right? Like, I don't know, offering a gift card for a demo, isn't there bad incentives there? However, I have seen it work at scale, like really high scale, millions of dollars of ROI effective campaigns per month. And I've seen it work for brands that you know well and have a really good brand reputation. Um, why does it work? It gets people to break their own inertia. So when someone is scrolling on paid social, right? And again, we talk about this a lot. Like how do you break that scroll? They may think your product is interesting looking, but it's not a priority right now. Or maybe I'll do that demo later, that kind of thing. If there's a little bit of incentive for them, it gets them just over the hump enough to start moving towards that decision and breaking their inertia. As a marketer, inertia is kind of your enemy, right? There's a lot of ways to ensure quality for incentives, right? One is the list. So if you have an incentive that you don't want non-qualified people to take, you can just offer it on like only your best and most proven lists on LinkedIn or like an uploaded list on Facebook, that kind of thing. Or you can put the incentive down funnel. So you only get the event invite if like you become a paying customer or complete the whole funnel or whatever it is. Anything that avoids people who are just like tourists or just looking for the incentive. There's a lot of ways you can design your incentives to get around this. You just have to be creative. All right. Now we're in testing and learning in 2025. So B2B marketers need to create life. Life stands for leading indicators of future earnings. Basically, what information do you have when a lead comes in that tells you that lead will correlate to revenue 12 months from now? Every B2B marketer and advertiser has the same issue, right? B2B sales cycles are long, attribution is somewhat uncertain. There's many steps that go into this ad funnel. How do you make decisions on your ad campaigns, right? When like a given ad campaign might only have 3 conversions and be profitable, well, like that's not enough data, or 3, new closed customers. That's not enough data to make decisions from. Creating life is how you get around that. Your leading indicator conversion is very important, and every company needs one. If you want a funnier acronym, it's every B2B marketer needs to get a life. But I've gone back and forth on which one to use. So there's a lot of different leading indicators that work, right? So again, we're looking for things that indicate a lead just came in from our advertising efforts. It could be a content lead. It could be a regular sign up lead. It could be many things. How do we tell that they're valuable? One is who the lead is. So qualifying questions are very, very important. I recommend, especially companies newer to advertising, ask more qualifying questions than they think. Like it's fine to have 3 or 4. Yes, it decreases the amount of people who fill out the form, but the information it gives you helps you iterate and learn much faster. In addition to what they say, what they do is also important, especially if your company is product-led growth. So for most PLG companies, there's some event that the user does within the first 24 hours. And if they don't do this, that lead is drastically less likely to ever be a paying customer. So like for Trello or something, like if someone doesn't make their first Trello board in 24 hours, they won't ever. For DoorDash, if a restaurant owner doesn't upload their menu in that first 24 hours, the chance of them doing it goes down a lot. You can use that as a signal, right? That's one reason why PLG companies really need to make sure that they have good server to server conversion sending from the platforms to tell the platforms like someone went to the product and they did X, they did Y, they did Z. All of that goes into creating a good leading indicator. So this is just an example. It's a little blurrier. Maybe you guys can't read it, but this is an old one for DoorDash for Work. So, a lot of times you'll get mixed intent leads, right? Where you don't know if a business owner is filling it out or an employee or they're qualified or not. A simple, straightforward question. What are you looking for? I'm an employee who wants my company to do this, or I'm a business owner who makes the decisions and wants to do this. That kind of thing can have like a 75% correlation to whether a lead will have revenue for the company in the future. This is a native lead form. You can see that's one way to make native lead forms more effective. In addition, on the left, you'll see data enrichment can do this as well, right? If a new lead comes in, you can connect it on Apollo or ZoomInfo or Primer or Clay.com. There's so many good tools nowadays that'll append information to that lead to help you make a better decision on those leading indicators without openly asking it. So once you have your leading indicator, it's one of your best tools for making decisions on the platforms. So in this chart down here, you can see the fifth row down is qualified leads. That's my measure for this particular chart of a leading indicator lead, right? So a lead that gave the information that says they're most likely to be a customer in the future. Once you have this measure, you can use that to compare week over week, to compare campaign versus campaign. It simplifies all your reporting. On a note on cohorting and vintaging, you'll see at the bottom of this table that there's a close one number, right? This April 1 to 7 has 3 and 8 to 14 has 1 in this sample data. I highly recommend vintaging or cohorting your data when looking at your down funnel analysis. This means if, a lead created in 2024 becomes a new customer in 2025, that lead belongs to the 2024 cohort. That's better for making advertising decisions because it was the advertising you did in 2024 that led to that lead closing. The day that deal actually closes is less relevant to making advertising decisions. So I mentioned how important server to server is in PLG. In general, it's really important to be sending these leading indicators to the platforms. Pixel tracking is still good. Do your best to get the product team to include the pixel in the product. A lot don't like doing this, but it really does help. Server to server is mandatory, not optional anymore. All platforms are moving towards it. If your company doesn't have a plan to get server to server going on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Google, that should be priority number one going into 2025. And send as much data as possible. So you can send every single piece of data to the platform. There's no downside to doing it. And what you optimize on does matter. So optimizing means like for a given campaign on LinkedIn, you say the goal is to get more lead signups or more opportunities. And then that specific one conversion event that you're optimizing on is what trains the ad algorithm to find you more good customers. So, you only optimize on one event, but you send in everything just to have some visibility is what we recommend. Couple things, ways to plan tests with your new leading indicator. You want an event that happens within 1 day of click. So while the ad platforms are spending money, they're getting info on how to spend that money better. So like if Google's spending 10,000 a day, but that data doesn't come in until a week later on like if it's working or not, Google's not going to spend that the most efficiently. Generally, across all the platforms, you need 30 to 50 conversion events per week per ad set. There are estimates that Google recently told one of our clients 50 a month across a whole ad account's enough. It's definitely not. You want to have, at least 30 to 50 a week. The right balance between event value and quantity for your budget is key. The average B2B cost per leading indicator is about $200. So a good test has at least 6,000 a week in spend. Again, this is just a rule of thumb. The budget depends on how many convert, like your cost per conversion. But in general, you just want to do the math to make sure you're getting at least 30 conversions a week on a given campaign. So how else do you measure performance? A lot of what we talked about so far has been, kind of straightforward attribution-based advertising, gated content, sign-up forms, that kind of thing. What if your campaign is not trackable? What if it's ungated content for an ABM strategy, or brand advertising or thought leadership, something where you don't get that direct lead information? Lift tests are how you measure performance. So in a lift test, you split your audience into two and only serve ads to one half. There's a lot more complicated ways to do this, but this is what I recommend for almost everybody. One is geography based. So, only serve ads to half the US states and not the other half, or some other way to split up regions. List based would be, you have a list of 10,000 key accounts, 5,000 get ads and 5,000 don't. And then you just measure the results before and after. There's a lot of tools to help you. Google, Facebook, and LinkedIn have multiple lift test tools that can help you out. They've all improved their functionality and amount of these tools. Like Google now lets you do lift tests without needing a rep. It's built into the platform. LinkedIn has really improved it, etc. I forgot to add the bullet, but also adding a "Where did you hear about us" button to your form is pretty useful. Generally, it gives you directional data, which helps over time. And one cheat code is, Chat GPT-4 or really any of the really advanced AIs are really good at helping you design tests. So if you just tell it your goals, so for instance, the prompt could be, you know, we want to see if option A is better than option B. We have 10,000 visits a month, and we get 35 conversions. Like, how long do we need to run this test, and what spend has to happen for it to be statistically significant? And it'll happily design that test for you very accurately. So if you're not a statistics whiz, that's my recommendation when designing lift tests. Okay. And we're 42 minutes in. That's the end of our prepared remarks. We'd be delighted to take any questions that you guys have.
Yeah, thank you, Luke, and thank you, Kevin, so much. I know, Luke, you've been great at answering some of the questions live during the webinar, but I'll ask a few just in case the audience can't see the responses. So the first question that came in is, how is creative success measured? We make decisions based on more down funnel data, and an ad with high click-through rates may have lower life.
Yeah, so I kind of went in and answered this a little bit, but Kevin, I'd love to get your thoughts too. One of the big things with that is like down funnel data is like really important, but a lot of that depends on sales cycle time. And Kevin was kind of talking about this a second ago, where like you really want to have your conversion action or whatever signal within a day. When you're looking at creative success, like that might not necessarily be the most realistic way to like look at quality, but what you can look at, and like something that I look at for one of our clients that has like a sales cycle time of about 90 days is how many like qualified leads and how many qualified meetings are getting booked by piece of content. So what I use that for is, like we've seen ads that have really high CTR that don't actually end up generating qualified meetings booked. So it'll generate a lot of leads. People will be clicking on the ad, but then we don't get good quality from it. Whereas we might have an ad that's maybe, 3 or 4 points lower in terms of click-through rate, but it does a much better job of generating qualified leads, maybe at a lower volume. Than the other, but at that point, like we're willing to sacrifice a little bit of conversion volume if we're seeing more lift on the qualified lead front.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that. The question says we make decisions based on more down funnel data, and an ad with high click through rate might have a lower leading indicators of future earnings. So if you're finding that what you're optimizing towards is not correlating to more closed ones, it means it's not actually a good leading indicator event, right? So like if you're generating leads, but you find that a campaign that gets more leads sometimes has more or less closed ones, you want to get a new leading indicator event that better correlates to closed ones. The other thing to watch out for is making decisions with not enough data. Like maybe one campaign got 4 closed ones and one got 1 closed ones, and it looks so much better. But like statistically, those are like identical results if you don't have enough sample size. So you just gotta really keep on top of the data of what correlates to what, and like find that right balance between sample size and quality.
Yep. All right, we're getting a ton of questions coming in, which is great. So I'm going to try to power through these. Kelly asked kind of an interesting question. So how important is it to have an organic LinkedIn presence, posting somewhat regularly from the company page for the ads to be effective?
I have mixed feelings on this. In general, it's helpful, right? Like, because if someone does click out to your page and they see that you are active on LinkedIn, it is like helpful that someone sees that you do have an active presence and you're not just, like some like sketchy shell company that's just running ads from an empty page. That said, most people aren't clicking over to a LinkedIn page, and it is more likely if like you're a company with like less like brand recognition, right? So I would say like if you don't have as much brand recognition, it is like maybe a little bit more important to just have maybe 2 weeks to a month at least of posts on there. But if you're like or you're a company with big or with at least some level of brand recognition, especially in like a niche space, it's like less likely that people are going to be clicking out to there, especially if your offer is strong enough. One thing that's really important to remember there is that realistically, like whenever you're promoting one of these ads, you don't really want people clicking over to your LinkedIn page. They might be doing that. But really what that is also saying is that maybe my ad offer isn't strong enough because you really want them engaging with the ad, going to whatever landing page, going to whatever form it is that you're promoting, not clicking out to the LinkedIn page.
Yeah, those are strong points. All right, this next question that came in could be a little lengthy, so I might just to figure out how to simplify it. But they asked, can you talk about the types of creative and content that works best based off the customer journey stage? So I think we touched on bottom of the funnel a little bit, but so maybe do you want to
Yeah.
just kick off and answer it from like a top of funnel or a middle of the funnel perspective?
Yeah. So, you know, the very, very tippy top of the funnel would be something like, you know, broad blog articles, books. Like I'm thinking about like, you know, HubSpot wrote their book Inbound Marketing, and it really helped them out kind of like establishing the whole category for people who don't even know what they want, right? Like that's the highest level of or you know, the toppest level of consideration is like people don't even know what they want or know what the problem is. Once people know what the problem is, so that's like, oh, my problem is my sales team isn't closing enough, or it takes too long to process these HR things or whatever. That's where, you know, kind of the gated content and other things we talk about here really come into their own on fruition, is kind of that problem-based stage where someone knows they have an issue and but doesn't know what's the best solutions to solve that issue. And that's why like education is so effective. Incentives to get them in the door so the sales team can tell them how that works is effective. The lowest stage is like the solution based stage, right? So someone actually knows what solutions they're considering. It's no longer just a problem. They're like, oh, I'm choosing between Rippling, Zenefits, and some other big HR company. At that point, the kind of content would be like case studies, competitor comparisons, things that really get into the nitty gritty of someone looking at those deals. Um, I think that's my overall answer on that. That said, like I like to say everybody's in consideration at all times. So like in general, I don't recommend splitting your campaigns by like each of those formal stages. But by making content that's just really appealing and useful and practical and credible, and just like seeing who bites for it on social, is generally what I'd recommend.
Yeah, those are strong points as well. All right, Robert asked, can you give an example of how to get started small with a pilot campaign on LinkedIn ads, like with offers that are working with in-house lists like ebooks or webinars?
Yeah, Luke might add something, but the simplest way to get started: set up a campaign, upload the list that's working for you. You know, match it as well as you can. If it's not matching well, you know, enrich it with one of those tools like ZoomInfo or Clay.com or whatever. Create LinkedIn native lead ads. So that's, you know, the type of ad where the lead forms directly in the platform. Set it up to send to your sales team, make a compelling offer, either content or incentive, and just blast that list. That is the lowest lift way to test LinkedIn ads.
Yeah. And then the one thing that I'll add to that really quick, and we kind of touched on this with the ad format piece, I would start that out with both single image ads and with conversation ads. Within the conversation ad copy, you can keep it really simple, but say something in there because I'm assuming that you're already hitting these folks on email or whatever other channels. Say something in there like, "Hey, you might have gotten an email from us. Would love to, uh, you know." follow up on that and like give you like this offer, this opportunity or whatever, right? Like that offer piece is really important. And do the same thing, really craft that offer on the single image side too, just so that you're providing somewhat of a unique value proposition within the ad or within the ads that you might not be promoting as much like on email or whatever other channels you're using.
Sure. All right, let's pivot to SMB. I know Katie asked a question
Yeah.
about how you would change or your recommendations for SMB audiences. For example, Palo, Clay, the Zoom Infos, they don't really have great coverage for SMB. Do either of you have recommendations for how to target these SMBs?
Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, I love B2SMB advertising. It's my background. Like when I was in house, I did B2SMB. You know, some of our first clients at Right Percent were like DoorDash and Zenefits going after small businesses. With that in mind, I'd say almost all of these tips apply both to B2 SMB and B2B. The rules of content, the rules of incentive, the biggest differences are like B2 enterprise is less interested in getting their hands dirty. They do like things they can forward to like someone on their team instead to make these decisions is more considered. While SMB is like really on the practical side, like a download that's a printout they can put by their desk can work really well. You're right that B2 SMB enrichment data kind of sucks, which is why it's even more important to ask questions in the form. We have a client, Boulevard, who targets hair salons, and their forms are like, how many hair salon locations do you currently manage? And if the answer is 0, they don't count as a lead, right? So asking qualifying questions for B2 SMB is really important.
Yeah. I'll add to that. I was going to mention the form piece. I was also going to say, I know we've talked about conversion signal ad nauseum, but I think the conversion signal piece becomes even more important on on the B2 SMB side because there's so many more businesses that you can target as opposed to mid-size and enterprise. So, like if I'm targeting, just companies with 10,000 plus employees, if I get 1 or 2 leads on whatever budget, like there might not necessarily be that many companies within that list. So I might already be hitting a good amount of people or a good amount of like whatever that target list could be. Whereas with SMB, I could get 10 leads and still pretty low in terms of the penetration that I'm getting within SMB advertise or towards SMB folks. So that conversion signal becomes really important because there's usually more data that you can pass back with a B to SMB play.
Yeah. I'm loving these questions that are coming in. Please note, I know we are kind of running, or not running behind, but we only have a few more minutes. So we will try to answer 2 more questions and then feel free to keep throwing in your questions. We'll have Luke and Kevin review the questions and we can follow up individually after this. So I'm going to switch to kind of a metrics driven question from Martin. So after switching to manual bidding, my CTR decreased significantly, lower than 0.5%. But my CPC also decreased a lot. Is this normal or should I change something?
I'm assuming that this is on LinkedIn, but I don't know what platform this is on for sure. So I'm going to answer this as though it's
Yeah,
LinkedIn.
Martin, if you want to type in the chat, if you're referring to LinkedIn. Yep, he said LinkedIn.
Okay, sweet. Yeah. That is pretty typical. Usually my whole thought with LinkedIn is that with manual bidding, like because the CPC is so much lower and realistically you're bidding on it allows you to bid on clicks as opposed to automated delivery makes you bid on impressions. It's usually worth it even if your click-through rate does drop a bit. I would just double check on, just make sure that your settings are good, like with like audience network and some of those other things. Because sometimes if you accidentally have like some like app placements on or whatever in there, that could be like artificially increasing your CTR from people that are accidentally clicking on the ad. I would double check those settings, but usually that's okay, and like I wouldn't worry about that too much because usually the benefit of having the lower cost per click outweighs like a lower CTR there.
Yep. I want to jump in also and answer Brian Grant's question on in chat. It's not on Q&A. It's basically saying, can you elaborate more on why 30 to 50 per week is the target? When Google now has like 1 per day, 30 days. The answer is just like Google is just too aggressive. We have seen clients test this on their Google's recommendation a bunch of times, and 30 per month is just not enough, especially for complicated campaigns, especially in B2B. We think it's much too aggressive, and we recommend like we just see better results from having higher volume.
Yeah, I had a Google rep recently tell me that 5 a month is fine, and like I just don't think that that's from all the data that we've gathered across advertisers that we're servicing. That doesn't add up to with what we're seeing.
Cool. All right, I'm gonna ask one final question. So kind of in preparation for 2025, what mistakes do you see people making on ad accounts most frequently this year?
I think the biggest thing that I see, and I kind of alluded to this a lot already, but I think that a lot of people think that it's very easy to just kind of like test out of things. And again, it's just become so much more difficult with how algorithmic things have become. I think that, just not having the conversion signal right is a fundamental mistake that a lot of folks are missing, especially on the B2B side, because it's harder on B2B, right? With B2C, it's usually as simple as, okay, I've got Shopify to plug in. This person purchased, this person didn't purchase. Great. Like we know how much revenue there is. With B2B, you usually have a lot of, different things to connect via segment or via tag manager, or like whatever it is. Getting that right is so fundamentally important in 2024 as opposed to where we were just a few years ago. And I'd say like that's the biggest thing that like folks are like we see all the time, folks having data issues, and like that is like usually the very first thing that we have to solve.
Yep. I'd add other question is on offers. So people, B2B companies often make the mistake of like, oh, here's our campaigns. What offers do we have available? Oh, we have an article on this. We have that. Let's throw it in there. That's the opposite of how it should be done. Start with the offer. The offer is so important, and then build your campaigns around the offer. Don't think of it as an afterthought. I do want to answer Kelly's last question also.
Sure.
You asked, you recommend using lists on LinkedIn. You mentioned lists a lot. What about, demographic targeting, industry type, job title function? So lists are better in really small audiences. So like if you have like 1,000 Fortune 500 like CEOs, and you have an ABM strategy where the sales team has that list and they're pounding after it, that's when lists matter. For everyone else, we actually recommend demographic based targeting. So like a big vertical of like people in the trucking industry with this amount of years of experience, this and that can be wildly successful only on LinkedIn. On Meta, that sucks. You should use algorithmic. But on LinkedIn, that kind of demographic targeting is excellent.
Yeah. The second you start scaling like LinkedIn up above, let's say 30,000 is like a loose number, I'm going to say above $30,000 a month, it gets really difficult to just use list targeting. Like you really have to start relying on LinkedIn's data, which LinkedIn's data is very good for prospecting in B2B. So like it works out, but it becomes a lot more difficult the more you're trying to scale that channel.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. I know we are almost at the hour, so thank you both for addressing all those questions. Like I mentioned, we will review all the other questions that come in, so feel free to keep putting in those questions and we'll address them after the webinar is over. And I want to launch one final poll. We love to just get your feedback on how you thought this webinar went. So from a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the strongest, let us know how much you enjoyed or didn't enjoy this webinar. This will really help us kind of reevaluate the content and really improve it moving forward. So I will keep that poll open, and I just wanted to put up the contact information on the screen. I believe, Kevin, you already put your email address, but if you do have any follow-up questions specifically for Kevin and Luke, their email addresses are up on the screen, and we'll include them in our follow-up emails as well. And if you do just want to reach out to Right Side Up directly, there is a QR code and a URL on the screen as well. And then lastly, we try to do these webinars about, every other week. Our next webinar is actually a unique one. It is a Right Side Up deep dive. So we are kind of doing a no obligation webinar. It's about 30 minutes long, and we're going to be kind of touching on all the different offerings and capabilities that Right Side Up provides. So if you are curious about, possibly hiring a marketing consultant or an agency to really help you revamp, whether it's your B2B advertising or you want to launch affiliate program or e-commerce, running, all the different marketing functionalities, feel free to tune in. The QR code is up on your screen to register, and you can go to our website as well to learn more. So with that, we are about at the top of the hour. So again, want to thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Luke, for all your great insights for today. And thanks each and every one of you for attending. We'll include a link to the recording in your email tomorrow. So look out for that in your inbox. And with that, have a great rest of your day, everyone. Take care.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.